Hello there, welcome back. Today I'm going to talk about Pig, which is the new indie darling movie. For a good reason. It's quite nice you've got a movie that's done really well, even in this pandemic times, that actually is good. It's not just a film that's done well because it's trying to be a respectable Oscar bait. It's actually a good film. So it's directed and written by a guy called Michael Sarnowski, who I think this is his first film. And it stars Nic Cage, Alex Wolff, and Adam Arkin. And basically it's a guy searching for his pig. Now, the trailers, if you see the trailers, try and make you think as if it's going to be a John Wick type of film where he's beating people up. He's not. Like, at all. So it's a bit of false advertising there. What you got is very much a character-based thing, based on an idea that could be absurd, except the fact that they take it seriously as a character piece rather than a plot piece. So the quest is to find the pig, but the reasons for why he wants to find the pig are different from what you'd expect, and it is just a character piece. Ultimately, it's a character piece, and it is wonderful. It's just it's one of those things. If you get Nic Cage to write film, which is something that's hard because he makes a lot of films, and some of them are trashy, but the last few years he's been doing a lot of good stuff. I mean, he did Mandy, Call Out of Space, this one. He's doing one with Sion Sono. So he's an actor who's... The thing is, people have always said, nowadays he does anything for the money because he needs the money. But it's like, if you look at his career, he always did weird films. Like, even when he was big, he would go from romantic comedy to action movies to weird dramas. He'd always go from different type of films because he was easily bored. He doesn't want to do the same thing all the time. So his career's always been up and down. This is a guy who, after Wilder Hart made a Zalman King movie, Zandali, which is a terrible movie, he will try anything. He made Vampire's Kiss. He'll try anything. So, I mean, yeah, he may have to do a couple of movies he doesn't like just to, for money, like some generic thriller, but even then he's making stuff with Paul Schrader. He's doing a bunch of other stuff. So you're going to get some trash. You're going to get some weird stuff. Even something like Willy's Wonderland, which was not a great film. It was still enjoyable. You sometimes get utter craziness like Jiu-Jitsu, which is a terrible film, but very enjoyable for how terrible it is. And Cage is one of the reasons why it's enjoyable, because he's... it seems to have made this and that pretty close together because it looks exactly the same. He's the beard and the... So it's like, I'm sure those are shot back to back. But you never know where he's coming from. So you can get a trashy film and you can get something really good. Which makes it interesting to watch. Say what you want about him, at least his career's still interesting. It's not like Sean Penn's career where you're like, I can't bother to see what he's doing now because it's probably going to be boring and self-righteous. At least with Cage, there's a lot of films, and some of them are trash, but some of them are really enjoyable. So he's always had a taste for the trashy. Some of them drive angry, even when he was making lots of money. He did the Wicker Man remake because he thought it was a good idea and he produced it, and it's like, only a madman would do that, but he was obviously passionate about it. So you're never quite sure with him, which is why I like his films, because you're never quite sure where they're going to go. And you always get the gems every so often. That's one of the gems. Now, I should say, I was on a podcast for Husey's channel, Touch of Film, a while ago, one of the favourite Nicolas Cage films. So, if you want to hear more about my thoughts on Nicolas Cage films, go over to Husey's channel, you'll see the podcast. It'll last like 3 hours or something, so there is that. But this one came out after that. This one is just beautiful. This one, it's just a beautiful film. Because basically Cage plays this guy who lives in the woods. He's got a beard. He always looks unwashed. And he's got a pet pig. And he's basically electricity, which basically is the batteries to run his for his music and his tape recording stuff. But generally he's the very basic stuff. Like he's walked away from the world. He cannot take the world as it is. It's just not something he's interested in. He wants to be alone. He wants to do what he does. And what he does is, for supplies, he cooks these weird truffle things that Alex Wolff's young man supplier comes to him gives him money for it, and also brings supplies to help make it. So he brings in his food and everything else, and Cage makes the truffle stuff for him. So they've got a deal there, and Alex Wolff's character does that with supplies for a lot of people into the city. He takes in the truffles and the cooking and stuff, and he supplies the restaurants with it. And as you find out later, his father's also in that field. But it's always implied there's a thing between him and his father. I'm not going into spoilers in this film, don't worry, because it's a character piece anyway. But you kind of don't want to know what happens in the second half of the movie. You want to enjoy it, so I'm going to keep it very light in anything that happens. I'm going to try and give you an idea of why it's so good without really explaining much, because it is part of the enjoyment of seeing how things turn out and how things are revealed. But nothing's quite what it seems, but not in a kind of plot twisty way. It's a character based way. And at some point during the night, these basic meth heads come in and attack Cage and steal his pig. And Cage barely recovered, walks to a local diner, which he hasn't been to in like a decade, it turns out, and he uses the phone to call his contact who comes to get him, and he's going to look for his pig in the city. But first of all, they're going to go to the local dealers and they find out who stole the pig. But it turns out they were stealing it for someone else, but they won't say who it was. And you go into... So they have to go into the city to find out who it was that stole the pig. Now that's a basic plot. Really is. It's a basic setup. But it's really about Cage's character going back into the city and how he deals with people. And you're watching his trauma, but you're also watching him as he deals with people and how he knows a lot of stuff about the city, even though he hasn't been there for a long time. But what the film is really about is relationships. Either relationships that are being and gone or relationships that still existing, but it's the kind of traumatized idea of what a relationship can do to you, what a kind of friendship or a love can do to you, how it can help or hinder you, and how certain relationships can really damage you. And that's what the kind of theme of the film is. It's like, how do people react to that kind of thing? Do they shut down? Do they become a wounded person who can't quite face their demons? Or do they just walk away from the world? Or, it becomes this thing about the different ways, or a combination of all those things. Because you could say that walking away from the world is like shutting down and not dealing with anything and not facing their trauma. So everyone's got their mix of different things, different elements within that spectrum. But it is like, how do you deal with loss and how do you deal with life and the trauma life brings you, and what are the use of your ambitions? Like, what do your ambitions actually mean? I mean, they mean something to you, but do they mean much to anyone else? Is there validity to them? And would you sell them out to just make a living? Because that's what they face. That's what the characters face. And you've got Cage's character who seems to have walked away from it all. And there's other characters who are much more dealing with it all. There's a great scene in the middle where Cage faces down this chef who Cage knows but who's kind of sold out, and it becomes this thing of, why are you doing this? And the good thing about Cage and this whole film is he's very kind. He's not like this malicious person out to beat people up. He is a kind person. He's not nasty at all. He is reasonable. He just looks like a homeless person because he kind of is. But he does have a home in the middle of the woods. But he's not let what's happened to the world destroy humanity. It just means he's very guarded, and it becomes this story about how do you deal with people, and how does that define you? What do you do with people to get through the day, or can you not do that? And it becomes that it's set in Portland, and it's just these characters going through Portland which has gone from being a place that was this kind of hippie place to being something that was much more of a business place now. People are spending a lot of money in food in these fancy restaurants, and there's a big business now with supplying these restaurants, and you've got all these places out in the backwoods who are selling the food to them that are, so it's an industry. it's a bigger industry than people expect to see, and people are getting rich off it, and it becomes this thing of, even in areas that don't seem to be that promising, people can make a living, make a good living, but they're going to be exploiting your neighbours, basically. Which some people are fine with and some people aren't. But the film becomes that, what are you willing to do to survive, and what are you willing to give up your soul to survive? And not in a kind of judgmental way, it's just like, the only person who's taking the tally is you. No one else cares. Everyone else is their own thing. Some people might be concerned for you, but no one else actually cares that much. They've got their own problems. So the tally is on you. Like, what do you do to survive? It's like, it's finally, judgment's finally on yourself. But the film's about, like, people taking a reckoning for who they are and what they are, and that's the kind of, the main theme of it is literally kind of looking yourself in the mirror, and if not, why not, and what's caused your trauma, what's caused you to be this kind of person. And it doesn't explain things in the most obvious way. It's like, you get pointers to why someone's a certain way, but it doesn't explain everything, and you have to fill in the gaps yourself. Like, you don't fully get everything about Nicolas Cage's character, why you get enough, but you don't get everything. You get him in context, you get him in context of his past as well, but who he is now and what his past is, it doesn't completely join up in a sense that, oh, that explains everything, because some of his past could have been a lot weirder, and he's not. He's actually fairly sane, but he won't compromise himself for society. And even the Alex Wolff character, you get a lot of points of why he is the way he is, but you don't get everything. It doesn't explain everything about him. The Adam Arkin character comes in later on, so I can't really say much about him, except the actor's terrific in it. You don't get a full point as what he is as well. Everyone's got their reasons for being. So it allows you to actually interpret things yourself. But the big thing is, the film's shot very sensitively. It's nicely shot, but it's not show-offy. It doesn't try and show off. It doesn't try, but it's got a nice look to it. Everything feels in the right place. It feels very 70s influenced. It feels very much like Cutter's Way influenced. And that kind of aesthetic. Like, we're going to let the actors act. All the performances are terrific. Everyone knows what they're doing. Cage is very restrained in this one. Like, more than you probably expect. But he's very humane, and it's a very nice performance. It's one of those things where you give him something good, he'll deliver. You know, a lot of time he's not given the great stuff, so he finds ways to create something interesting with it. But in this one, he's got something good. He doesn't have to do histrionics. He just has to be and let the character lead. And that's what's wonderful about his performance. He trusts the material, and he just lets himself be that character. So this is a terrific film. This is one of the best films of the year. It's just been released over here in the UK, so just try and see it wherever you can. You know, it's now slowly sort of being released everywhere. So it won't win awards or anything. It's too small to win awards, but you hope it gets some recognition because it deserves it. But it's one of those things. It's probably too good to get recognition. But there you go. Right, I'll hopefully enjoyed that, and I'll see you next time for another video. Right, bye for now.